We're making a co-op horror game where you and your friends blast through hordes of infected and work closely together as a team to hopefully make it a safety. Over the past year, we took our game from the hell is that to, that's actually not too bad. Just in time to launch our Steam page, which is officially live, so wishlist it now and stick around to see how we turned it into something that looks like an actual game. But before we do that, let's give you a quick rundown of what Safe Inside actually is. Safe Inside was created as a love letter to fun and exciting co-op zombie games. You and your friends must band together and use teamwork to make it to the safe room alive. Prox chat was built into the gameplay pretty early on, so there are constant events and tasks that force you to split up, either solo or in small groups. This adds an unpredictable twist to the experience because if you're the first to reach the safe room, you have no idea if your teammates are still on their way or already dead. Once the safe room door is closed, it cannot be reopened. Anyone that's still outside is lost. It's a choice you'll have to make to either save yourself or hold out to see if your teammates show up. Zombies and gore are so intertwined in modern media, it didn't feel right to not include it. We think a zombie game isn't really a zombie game without an absurd amount of limbs flying everywhere, which is why a gore system was a top priority for us. I want to show you an example of just how adding a few small gore details can dramatically change game feel. At first, you can see the head just disappeared, so we hopped in a blender and created a head model that would come flying off the body. But we realized it still didn't look good if the head just pops off, so we created a gore chunk that spawns in the neck hole, so the slice doesn't look so perfect. But of course it's gonna look clean without blood, so we added Niagara effect, and now there's no lack of blood coming out of that neck. But there is still a lack of blood in the world, so we have that shit splattered everywhere, on the walls, all over the clothes, and even on your own screen. To get that good gore feeling, of course, it's better if it comes from a melee weapon. In our previous devlog, we had the beginnings of a melee system, and let me tell you, it did not look great. So we redid the animations, added screen shake, those nice juicy slicing audio, and of course, actually made it work. When you swing a melee weapon, a line trace spawns from your head that mimics the direction of that swing, and depending on where the trace hits, it will trigger the gore sequence for that body part. Just look how fun it is popping these heads off, like come on.
Safe Inside isn't a story game, but we think it's important to have a world that feels like it's alive. Or I guess at least was alive at one point. The main goal is to travel between temporary safe rooms in search of permanent safety. But you can uncover elements of the story by exploring the world and discovering secrets, which we think is much better than just telling you what the story is. This leaves parts of the story open-ended and up to your interpretation. Each campaign has a different vibe to it while also showing you how the virus and the NECR affected each location. For the trailer, we wanted to show off these different environments, so we created small sections of each campaign that will end up in the full game even if they end up changing a little bit. Since we're based in Boston, we kept it close to home and set the game in New England. Well, at least most of it. New England is one of the most amazing places you can be in the fall, even if you're trapped in a creepy abandoned hospital, but as soon as the snow hits, it can be brutal. Fighting off infected is hard enough without having to worry about snowstorms. So eventually you make your way south to a much sunnier part of the East Coast, which just ends up coming with its own set of problems. Making each campaign have a different setting, time of day, and weather keeps the game feeling fresh, but any game can just change the position of the sun, so we knew we had to do more. To do this, we decided to use the environments to show what happened since the outbreak and how the NECR played their part. At this point, you're probably wondering what the NECR even is, so let's go over that real quick. NECR stands for National Emergency Containment Response. They were the group tasked with controlling the outbreak, but they have an interesting way of trying to cure the virus. To help tell the story, we're creating all sorts of custom NECR elements, from massive billboards and evacuation zones, all the way down to the smallest details, like the acronym itself, which may or may not be a little reference to another zombie game everyone keeps talking about in the comments. The most important part of any zombie game is obviously the zombies. We have two main types of infected, the basic infected and the ones that are a bit freakier. The goal of the basic infected is to overwhelm the players and keep the action and intensity high at all times. The counter to that is the freaks, which all have unique characteristics, but their goal is all the same: exploit any weakness and use it against you. First, I want to talk about the basic infected. I mentioned that their goal is to overwhelm the players, and they do this by just having so many of them. But of course, when you have 30 infected running at you, it doesn't look good if they're all just the same exact guy. So we put a lot of effort into making a system that randomizes how each basic infected looks when it spawns in. First, it spawns with 1 of 4 base models, 2 male and 2 female. Don't worry, we're gonna add a bunch more in the future, but we wanted to make sure the system actually worked first. Once the model is chosen, we have different material sets for each body part, which helps make each infected look bloody and beaten in its own way. Then it goes through and chooses from a few different clothing options that each have multiple colors of their own. And finally, to make it look like an actual infected and not just a person, one more layer of blood gets added and the clothes get ripped and torn apart for more sets of randomized textures. This is a system that we will continue to add to for a long time, so when the game does come out, each basic infected will look unique in its own way. As for the freaks, we're going to have a whole lineup of them when the game comes out that will each hinder the players in their own ways. We want to show glimpses of them in the trailer, so we currently have 2 that are in the early stages of development. The first will single out one player and grab them by the head to drag them away from the rest of the group. The second is your standard gigantic tank-like infected who will throw a wrench in any plan by dealing high damage and taking a lot of effort to kill. Another freak that we haven't started yet, but we're looking forward to working on very soon, is one that will disorient the players by scrambling the prox chat and messing with the players' comms. We have plenty of ideas for more freaks that we aren't ready to share yet, but we're excited for you guys to see them once it's time.
We've said time and time again that our main goal with this game is for players to just have fun with their friends. Overly complicated mechanics can suck the fun right out of the game and make it feel more like a chore. That's why we kept things simple when designing the weapon and utility inventory systems. 2 weapons, 3 utility items, that's it. Here's a quick breakdown of how we separated items into these 3 categories. The first utility slot is your health slot. It's for items like bandages, medkits, and temporary health boosts like the energy drink. These are going to be crucial because no, your health doesn't just magically regenerate. The second slot is your lethal slot, where you'll keep things that go boom and ouch. Think of items like frag grenades, trip mines, and molotovs. If it explodes, ignites, and causes serious psychological damage, it probably belongs here. The third and final slot is what we call the tool slot, which is a bit more versatile. Tools are all about increasing your chances of actually making it to the safe room. This includes stuff like flashlights, lockpicks, and walkie-talkies, which are great for extending your prox chat range. These are just a few examples. Nothing shown in these devlogs is totally locked in, but this is the direction we're heading in. Next up is the weapon inventory system, which is even more straightforward. You can carry 2 weapons max, 1 primary and 1 secondary. Weapons are split by type, so guns like assault rifles, SMGs, hunting rifles, and shotguns will always go in your primary slot, and things like pistols and melee weapons are reserved for your secondary slot. No juggling a weapon inventory system, just a solid main weapon and a nice backup. Here are some before and after shots of our weapons so you can see how they've evolved over the last year. Keep an eye out for improvements in recoil animations, VFX, handling, and overall punchiness. We've been working hard to make every shot feel great. Safe Inside has been in development for quite a while now, and we're genuinely so proud of how far it's come, especially over the last year. Our official announcement dropped just a few weeks ago, and the support since then has been nothing short of amazing. Putting together the trailer and launching our Steam page was way more work than we ever thought it would be, but seeing so many people interested in the game has made us more motivated than ever. We also launched our Discord server along with the announcement, so feel free to hop in and join the community. We're always around to answer questions, hear feedback, or just chat. Plus, when it's time for early playtests, that's where we'll be looking first for players. As always, we're posting updates across all our platforms, so check those out and consider following if you want to stay in the loop.